I was setting the table when the doorbell rang. Can someone get that? Mom called from the kitchen. My hands were full of Grandma's china. The good set we only bring out for Thanksgiving, so I hollered back, "Charlie, get the door." My 12-year-old brother didn't budge from the couch, eyes glued to his phone as always.
Charlie, I'm busy.
You're on TikTok. The doorbell rang again. Dad came in from the garage wiping his hands on a towel. I'll get it. I went back to laying out plates. For settings. Small Thanksgiving this year, just us. Mom had said she wanted something intimate. I suspected she just meant less work. I heard the front door open. Then quiet. Then Dad's voice. Can I help you? A man's voice answered. Rough, quiet. I'm sorry to bother you on Thanksgiving. I was wondering. Do you have any food you could spare? I froze. Mom appeared in the dining room doorway and our eyes met. A homeless man. At our door. On Thanksgiving. Dad's voice uncertain. He stepped outside and pulled the door shut, then came back in. Hold on a second. He closed the door and walked into the kitchen. Mom followed. I followed her. Dad stood by the counter staring at nothing. Rob. Mom's voice was tight. What are you doing? There's a man outside. He's hungry. So give him some money or leftovers when we're done. He's alone, Jen. On Thanksgiving. Oh no, I grew up poor. Really poor. We didn't have much and people looked right through me. Like I wasn't there. Like I didn't matter. I'd never heard any of this before. One person saw me. One teacher. Treated me like I had value. Like my potential mattered more than my circumstances. His voice thickened. That teacher changed my life. What does that have to do with? If someone hadn't given me a chance when I had nothing, I wouldn't have this. He gestured around at the house, our life. I wouldn't have you. Or Charlie. Or any of this. He looked at Mom. You're right to be cautious. Right to want to protect our family. But that man out there isn't dangerous. He's desperate. There's a difference. How can you be so sure? Mom's voice had gone quieter. Because dangerous people don't apologize. They demand. They threaten. They take. Dad started toward the door. This man asked. Politely. And he was ready to accept no for an answer. He reached the door, put his hand on the knob and looked back at us. I can't turn away someone who's hungry on Thanksgiving. Not when we have this much. I'm inviting him to eat with us. You can be uncomfortable. Lauren can be embarrassed. But that man is having Thanksgiving dinner at our table. Mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Dad opened the door. Mom looked at me, furious, scared, helpless. I felt exactly the same. Where are you spending Thanksgiving this year? Drop it in the comments below. And if you're into stories about kindness, transformation, and Thanksgiving miracles, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Dad opened the front door. Sir? I'd like to invite you to join us for Thanksgiving dinner. Silence. Then the man's voice. I can't. I don't want to disturb you. You're not disturbing anyone. We have plenty of food, and no one should be alone today. Please come in. More silence than footsteps. I watched from the dining room as a man stepped inside. Maybe 60, painfully thin, wearing a worn jacket several sizes too big. Jeans ripped at the knees, boots falling apart, a backpack slung over one shoulder. His hair was gray and unruly, his beard long and unkempt, his face weathered and tired. But his eyes were kind. Thank you, he said quietly. I'm David. Rob Mitchell. Dad shook his hand. This is my wife, Jennifer. My daughter, Lauren. My son, Charlie. Charlie had appeared in the hallway, staring wide-eyed. Mom forced a smile. Hello, David. Mom. David nodded respectfully. I really appreciate this. It's been a while since I had a real meal. Of course. Mom's voice was strained. Rob, why don't you show David where he can wash up? Good idea. David, bathrooms down the hall. Take your time. David hesitated. I don't want to be any trouble. You're not trouble, Dad said firmly. You're our guest. David nodded and walked down the hall. Once he was out of earshot, Mom grabbed Dad's arm. What are you doing? She hissed. The right thing. The right thing? Rob, we have children. watching us, learning from us. What do you want them to learn? That we only help people when it's comfortable? I want them to learn that we protect our family first. By showing them it's okay to turn away someone in need? Mom opened her mouth again and shut it. She had no answer. I felt sick because part of me agreed with her. This was strange, uncomfortable, wrong. But some smaller part of me knew Dad was right. I just didn't want him to be. 10 minutes later we were at the table. David had cleaned up. His face was fresher. His hair still messy but combed with his fingers as best he could. Dad had lent him a clean shirt, too big but better than the torn jacket. He sat between Charlie and Dad, across from me and Mom, looking entirely out of place against the good china, the nice tablecloth, the perfect Thanksgiving spread. Mom brought out the turkey. Dad finished carving, set down the knife and looked around the table. Before we eat, he said, I'd like us to share what we're grateful for this year. It's a tradition in our family. Mom's eyes widened slightly. We always did this, sure. But with a stranger at the table? Dad either didn't catch her look or chose to ignore it. I'll start, he said. I'm grateful for my family, for this home, for the ability to share what we have with others. And I'm grateful for unexpected guests who remind us what Thanksgiving is really about. He looked at David on that last part. Mom went next, clearing her throat. I'm grateful for my family's safety and health. Her voice was tight but sincere. Charlie went next. I'm grateful for video games. And pizza. He glanced at David, then looked away fast. Then it was my turn. Everyone looked at me. I didn't want to do this, didn't want to say something real in front of this stranger. But Dad was waiting, expectant. I'm grateful for. I paused. What was I even supposed to say? For my family. And having a nice house. And stuff. Lame. So lame. I could see Dad's disappointment. Then David spoke. May I? Dad nodded. Of course. David set down his fork and looked around the table, at each of us in turn. I'm grateful, he said quietly, for kindness. Real kindness. The kind that says my home is your home. Even when it's hard. His voice thickened. I'm grateful for people who see humanity where others see nothing, who set an extra place at the table when the easy thing would have been to close the door. He looked at Dad, then Mom, then me. And I'm grateful for this meal, for this family, for being reminded that I'm still a person, still worthy of a seat at the table. Silence. Mom's eyes were wet. Charlie was staring at his plate. Something cracked open in my chest. This man, this stranger I'd wanted to turn away, was grateful just to be seen as human. Dad reached over and put a hand on David's shoulder. We're grateful you're here. We passed dishes around in silence, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green beans, cranberry sauce. David took small portions, polite like he didn't want to take too much. Please help yourself, Dad said. There's plenty. This is more than enough, sir. Thank you. We started eating. The only sounds were forks against plates, quiet chewing. It was the most awkward meal of my life. Charlie kept staring at David. I kicked him under the table and he kicked back. Mom barely touched her food, just pushed it around. I ate fast, wanting this over with. David ate slowly, carefully, like every bite mattered. So David, Dad said, where are you from? Originally Ohio. Been in Oregon 30 years. What brought you here? A teaching job. I looked up. You were a teacher? Dad asked. Yes, sir. Elementary school. 5th grade. 28 years. I glanced at Mom. She looked just as surprised. That's a long career, Dad said. What school? Hamilton Elementary. Until 2019. Hamilton. Dad set down his fork. I went to Hamilton. A long time ago. 82 to 87. David looked at him. When were you in 5th grade? 1984. Mrs. Ferguson's class. Mrs. Ferguson retired in 83. I took over her class. Silence. Dad stared at him. What's your last name? Anderson. David Anderson. Dad's face went white. Mr. Anderson? David tilted his head, studying him. Then his eyes widened. Robbie Mitchell? You remember me? Of course I remember you. You were in my first class. The kid who wanted to be an astronaut. Dad laughed, stunned. I can't believe, Mr. Anderson. You're Mr. Anderson. I go by David now. You taught me for 2 years. 5th and 6th grade. You were my favorite teacher. David smiled, small and sad. That's kind of you to say. It's true. You're the reason I went to college. You told me I was smart enough. That I could do anything. You were smart, Robbie. I just reminded you. Mom was staring. Charlie was staring. I was staring. Our homeless stranger was Dad's elementary school teacher. What? Dad's voice cracked. Happened. David's smile faded. Life happened. We finished the meal in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now, heavy, not awkward. After dinner, Dad made coffee and we moved to the living room. David took the recliner. Charlie sat on the floor beside him, fascinated. I sat on the couch next to Mom, who'd gone quiet, thinking. Mr. Anderson, Dad said. David. I have to ask. What happened? How did you? He couldn't finish. He didn't need to. David sighed. My wife, Susan. She got sick. Early onset Alzheimer's. She was only 55. I'm so sorry. She went downhill fast. Within 3 years she didn't recognize me anymore. I put her in a facility, the best one I could find. But it was expensive. Very expensive. He paused, looking into his coffee. I spent everything, savings, retirement, sold the house, borrowed against my pension. Still wasn't enough. I worked extra jobs, tutoring, summer school, anything I could find. That must have been exhausting, Mom said quietly. It was. But she was my wife. I'd have done anything for her. What happened to her? Charlie asked. Charlie, Dad started. It's okay, David said. She passed away 2 years ago. Peacefully. In her sleep. I'm glad she didn't suffer, Mom said. Me too. But after she died, I had nothing left. No house, no savings. I was 60 years old, exhausted, depressed. Lost my teaching job because I'd missed too many days. Couldn't find another one. Why not? I asked, and it came out harsher than I meant. David looked at me. Not angry, just tired. Because schools don't hire 60-year-old teachers with gaps in their resume. They hire young ones. Cheap ones. Oh. I lived in my car for 6 months. Then I couldn't afford the car anymore, so I sold it. Been on the streets 2 years now. 2 years. Dad's voice was barely a whisper. 2 years. Why didn't you reach out? To former students, to anyone. Pride, I suppose. Didn't want people seeing me like this. Didn't want to be a burden. You wouldn't have been a burden. Robbie. David smiled sadly. You have a family. A life. You don't need your 5th grade teacher showing up asking for help. Yes, I do. If that teacher is the reason I have this life. David's eyes filled with tears. So did mine. We talked him into staying the night. He protested, said he'd be fine, said he didn't want to impose. Dad wouldn't hear it. You're not imposing. You're staying. We have a guest room. It's yours. For tonight, Mom added, then paused. Looked at Dad. Or longer if you need it. David stared at her. Mom. Jennifer. Call me Jen. And I mean it. Stay as long as you need. I can't. You can, I said. Everyone turned to look at me. My face went hot. I'm sorry. For earlier. For how I acted. I was wrong. David shook his head. You were protecting your family. That's not wrong. But I wasn't. Not really. I was uncomfortable. And that's not a good enough reason to turn someone away. Lauren. Mom started. No, Mom. We were wrong. Both of us. Mr. Anderson needed help, and we almost didn't give it. Because it was inconvenient. Tears were running down my face now. I'm 17 years old. I have everything, a house, food, family, safety. And I almost told Dad not to help you because it would make Thanksgiving dinner weird. That's horrible. I'm horrible. You're not horrible, David said gently. You're human. And you're learning. That's all any of us can do. Stay, I said. Please. We have the room. We have the food. And I want to do better. David looked at Dad, then Mom, then Charlie, then me. Okay, he said finally. I'll stay. Just for a little while. Until I get back on my feet. David ended up staying 3 months. Not in the guest room the whole time. Dad helped him find a small apartment nearby, but he came over for dinner most weeks. He started tutoring and word spread fast. He was booked solid within a month. Then Hamilton Elementary called, short a substitute teacher, wondering if he'd be interested. He said yes. By February they'd offered him a permanent part-time position, back teaching 5th grade. He took it. Last week I drove to his apartment to pick him up for Thanksgiving, our second one together. This time he wasn't a stranger. He answered the door in khakis and a button-down, clean-shaven, hair trimmed. He looked different, healthier, happier. "Ready?" I asked. "Ready." In the car he said, "Thank you, Lauren, for everything. We didn't do anything. You did it yourself." "No. You did something important. You changed your mind. You let me in, not just into your house, into your life. I almost didn't. But you did. That's what matters." At dinner we went around the table again, sharing what we were grateful for. "Charlie, I'm grateful for Mr. Anderson teaching me long division. Mom, I'm grateful for second chances. And for my husband's stubborn compassion. Dad, I'm grateful for teachers who see potential in kids, and for being able to pay that forward. Mr. Anderson, I'm grateful for a family that saw me when I was invisible. That gave me a place at their table. That reminded me I still have something to offer this world." Then it was my turn. I'm grateful for being wrong. For learning that compassion isn't convenient. It's necessary. And I'm grateful for Mr. Anderson, for teaching my dad 30 years ago, and for teaching me last year. Everyone was crying. We held hands. And I realized that doorbell ringing last Thanksgiving hadn't just changed Mr. Anderson's life. It had changed mine too. Have you ever watched someone choose compassion when it was inconvenient? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story about kindness, transformation, and seeing the people others overlook moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about second chances, compassion, and the moments that change everything. And don't forget the notification bell so you never miss the next one.